People are removing the monuments to Confederates, right? Yep. Today, we're saying that's wrong. In their time period, they didn't see it as such. So I think we have to always start with humility, right? We have to ask ourselves, are we doing the right thing or are we doing the popular thing? And sometimes the two things are in conflict.
I want to bring in Derrick so he's backstage, and then I want to get to your tweet. Hey, Derrick, how are you?
Going well, Zennie. How you doing, John?
Hey, how you doing, my buddy?
I'm doing great.
Hey, before we shift, I want to get to another tweet, John, you put up. You wrote, let me be clear. As a black man, I experienced the response of fear from all races in Oakland, even as someone who has been featured in the media. I choose to exercise emotional intelligence and empathy as unifying tools. I know what you mean, but explain that for the call.
Sure. And I think it's important to your point to contextualize this. This tweet in particular was a follow-up to a previous tweet that I shared expressing my heartfelt sympathy for the folks in Chinatown, Eastlake, and Little Saigon. And the complexity of these issues, because I've noticed that there's been, when people name that what's been happening, there's some people have been calling that anti-black racist, right? Mm-hmm. Truth is, black males are harming people. That's just the truth. We have to stop politicizing it, right? I don't like language that invisibilize people. So, but I also wanted folks to understand, because I'm mindful of the complexities, right? So I didn't want to perpetuate this either or dynamic or even limit it. So, and last thing, you got to remember, this also was a follow-up to, yeah, you seen it there. So I shared that there was an Asian guy coming my way on the street, and he crossed the street, right? Mm-hmm. But I want to make clear that this wasn't about just black or Asian relationships, right? Because I feel like that's when things devolve and break down. I want to make it clear I experienced that from all populations, right? Yeah. But the key is this. I wanted to demonstrate what leadership looks like. We have a choice, long story short. We can start with our own hurt feelings, or we can stop and reflect on the other person's position.
Hey, John, if I may, my feelings are not hurt. I feel like when a person does that, I own the street. I'm like, yeah, okay. I used to want to find out why, but then I thought, you know what? That's not a person I want to know anyway. That person's a loser. So why do I care, right? You know, at all. I'm sorry. Go ahead, John. Then we'll get to Derrick too.
Yeah, sure. Because I definitely want to hear from Derrick. But I think it's so important, Zennie, that we do care, right? I have a saying: transformation can only occur from close proximity. And a lot of reasons why situations break down is because if we leave from a place of assumption, right? Meaning putting myself first. So in that situation, when I seen this elderly guy coming my way and he seen me and he hurriedly tried to cross the street, mind you, he had a cane. He almost got hit by a car in his desire to cross the street. I've learned, that's why I'm saying emotional intelligence, right? I didn't want to personalize it because, first of all, he doesn't know me. If he knew me, he would know. He would be safe around me. That's why I didn't personalize it. I think the important thing was to understand, but here's someone that's elderly, who's been through a lot. And our country sucks at making sure our elders are honored as national treasures. So I place myself in his shoes. Because to be quite frank and honest, that's the work I do is in someone formerly incarcerated. Every time I share that, there's an expectation from me clearly that folks give me some grace to see me beyond a record. So I, in turn, try to model that as well, to really see the person and not just see my response. So that's why I had wanted to share that, because if we don't do that, that's where things can get, I'll just give it a word, politicized. That's where things break down. It's not always either or. It's usually both and plus more.
I want to, Derrick is also a 2020, actually 2022 candidate for mayor of Oakland, and he is a Zennie62 video vlogger as well, who's done a lot of valuable work in vlogs. And Derrick, we got to bring John in the fold. Derrick,
absolutely.
Yeah. We think about this problem.
John is a fellow East Oakland resident, and I didn't hear what you said, Zen.
Oh, I'm sorry. What do you think about this problem that we're talking about with what the attack on Asian elderly? You've expressed it. I saw on your social media, and I think maybe actually also a video on it and your personal story. But what do you think about how the city has handled it? The mayor, share with us.
Not sure if the issue's on my end.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. Okay, now.
Should I repeat it or?
Yes, please.
Sure, yeah. What do you think about the problem? I'll say it just like that.
Well, the Chinatown issue has been a long-standing issue, especially this time of the year, for criminals. And it doesn't matter what the skin color is, that's irrelevant because it happens across the board because the Asian American seniors are constantly victimized this time of the year because of the little red envelopes that they tend to carry in their pockets. And they hand them out to their favorite business owners, friends that they come across in Chinatown. And so this is a lot of extra money that they normally don't carry. And so back in 2008, my father was targeted by two such criminals where they literally took and beat a 75-year-old man unconscious, ripped his pants off in the middle of the public street, and kicked him unconscious. He spent 2 days in the hospital just getting over to make sure that he was stable enough to go home, where my sister at the time was able to take care of him. I wasn't here. I was going through my own traumas back in North Carolina with financial collapse and loss of all my money. But it's been a long-standing issue. It's a very personal issue for me about Chinatown attacks, and especially on seniors, because that's been happening for a very long time, and it just didn't get the press that things like this are getting nowadays because of venues like this and formats like this to get the message out rather than just the mass media speaking.
How, John? Did you have a question for, or Derrick? You have a question for John in terms of thoughts and how we all can work together, or?
Oh no, I will be giving you a call this week, John, because I have something that I really need to get with you. I'm also in conversations with Carol Fife and several other people. Nikki is also on the list where I'm talking. Zennie's already seen my plan, so yeah. So he knows what I'm up to, and so I want to include you. You are a major key to this project, so I definitely will be getting with you this week. It's just been crazy here with everything that I'm doing.
Hey, John and Derrick, what do we? How do we address what the mayor did? I have repeated my call for the mayor to apologize because that's all Libby really. I think that's all anyone wants. But just to take what is really something that should not be the central focus of this entire issue and boom it fast,
Yeah, a simple apology saying that she shouldn't have stated what she stated. I mean, that's old news. Just like a lot of things that we're addressing is old news, but it keeps coming up. And you keep opening the old wounds. They never get to heal.
Yeah. John?
Yes, I totally agree. I definitely had one to hear Derrick thoughts of somebody I deeply respect. For me, as I open up, I share Zennie. My first concern was the people, not the politicians. So I had wanted to create real space for that. And as a follow-up, I've issued a call of my own with my fellow Black brothers and sisters, and people are answering the call. So Derrick, please give me a call. I want to shout out my dear friend, Dr. Jen Tran as well, because she issued a similar call. So we're here. We're one unified, beloved community, and that's how we got to function. But going back to Libby, right, so I want to censor people first. That's my position. Apologize is one thing, right? I think at the end of the day, she turns out next year. Mm-hmm. I think the most important thing is real, authentic leadership. Leadership that brings people and entities and governmental structures together, not leadership that devolves to finger pointing. We're all being besieged by so many things in our community. And the last thing we really need, I know for me, the last thing I want to hear is that finger point. Because my other concern is what it does, it just perpetuates apathy, right? These are situations where people who are registered to vote, but they're least likely voters, is usually because of things like that. So that's why I try to stay away. Like I try to give clear, if I give a critique, in other words, I try to open the door to where not only can that person, make amends, because we're all human beings, we're all gonna make mistakes, but most importantly, encourage people who live, especially in our marginalized communities, to give them a sense of hope. But if it's spun in a manner to where, that's just politicians being politicians, and then this is where these things continue to occur. So for me, I always want to be mindful of the complexity.
You know what I'd like to see is, and I've said this again and again and again and again and again, and I'll say it again and again and again, we need to bring back redevelopment, and not necessarily the way it was done, but allowing the tool of tax increment financing, specifically being able to, for those of you who don't know what that is, basically the dollar that you pay in property taxes goes to BART, AC Transit, the County of Alameda, the City of Oakland, and the Flood Control District. It's split that way. But under redevelopment, an agency office would take that money and then use it to pledge it toward a bond issue, which would then go for a number of, you can design the law as you wish. You can have it target city services in an area. You can have it target improved education. You can have it targeted for affordable housing. We used it in its original version since from 1968 to 2010, where such that 20% of the redevelopment money we took in tax increment financing went to affordable housing. Now you would say, okay, Zennie, what is tax increment financing? It works like this. This is your base year of assessed value for a property. The next year is year one. You take year one assessed value, subtract year zero. That's your first year. Second year minus the base year. Third year minus the base year. And those amounts accumulate, and each year you multiply that times the tax rate, which is 1%, and you dump it in the pool, okay? And if you think about it, it's actually a doubling formula that's extremely powerful that can be used to finance everything from, Henry Gardner told me that we used to use it in 1983 to remove crack houses in East Oakland to sports stadiums, okay? And yet Jerry Brown was who was my boss, okay, was under the idea, he said, that we would we would save $1 billion when we had that gigantic deficit just prior to his running for governor. But the truth is, as the California Finance Association pointed out to him, that wasn't true, and it turned out not to be true. Then he got on with Joan Walsh and Salon in 1999 late, and then more recently last year, and said that he didn't want redevelopment money spent for affordable housing in his areas where he wanted luxury apartments and luxury eateries to be. He said that. I'm paraphrasing, but he did say that, and I went ape and made a number of videos about it, meaning his intention for getting rid of redevelopment wasn't really about helping to revitalize areas and making them better for people who needed to have places that were affordable. He wanted luxury. He wanted elegant density, as he called it, and wrecked what was, in the case of Oakland, one of the greatest in terms of funding percentage with respect to need, affordable housing budgets in California history, if not the greatest. When Jerry got rid of redevelopment that year of 2011, our budget for that year alone, for affordable housing alone, was $111 million. I told Libby this when she sent out her first email bragging that they had $50 million for affordable housing. I said, please don't do that, because we had double that when redevelopment was killed, and you're going to do a victory lap for this? That's crazy, okay? I'm sorry, I get infuriated all over again when I see, and I am just saying this straight out, the gigantic level of civic incompetence. And I'm not talking about Libby. I love Libby as someone who's dear to me, but this is about the matter of being responsible for hundreds of thousands of people, okay, and their livelihoods and the future. And so at that point, someone, it's not a matter of speaking truth to power, it's just a matter of talking about how things work, okay? I've been in government a long time. I can run for mayor and make that stuff turn around. The timing's not right for me, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to explain what we need to do, because we're losing too many people in Oakland who work for Oakland, who have the institutional memory, all right, but they're tired and they're beleaguered. And we started ranked choice voting and then strong mayor. And so what happens, we used to have a stable government with Henry, and it got to a point where every 1.21 years we were getting rid of CAOs, okay? Starting with Fred Blackwell. Fred saw that Gene Kwan wasn't going to run for re-election. He's like, I'm out of here, right? And he bailed, okay? Wake the fuck up, people, all right? You're allowing this. Learn how your government works, who your council members are, okay? And what tax systems work and don't work. This is your fault, too. This stuff's ridiculous. Sorry. But I'm just pissed off with it. I'm tired of this incompetence. I really am.
Yeah, I agree with you, Zennie. I've lived through it, and in fact, I lived in one of those stupid luxury buildings that came up and became available in 2002, the Essex. I lived there for 2 years. That place sucked. They were touted as luxury living. Oh, it was. I've seen better organization here in my camp living on the street than what was going on there at the Essex. And I was paying $1,600 a month, where the only reason why I was renting that place because I had just sold my condo, and I was using the condo money to restore and rebuild my Santa Clara home. And it was going to take 2 years, and that was the only reason why we spent the money on that place. I hated the place. All I saw was crime around the lake. I mean, there were so many issues in the building and the mismanagement. It was horrible, and they called it luxury living. And now, instead of paying $1,600 a month like I did in 2002 to 2004, now you're going to pay $4,000 or $5,000 for that luxury living, and even smaller space. I had 600 square feet. Now you get 428 for that.
But Derrick, I do have to say it. I love you, my friend, but that was luxury living. I want one of those. Okay, the only reason I didn't get one of those places is because you walk into those. The balcony is so shut. I thought, I can see having a party. Somebody gets drunk. Next thing you know, it's it's like, no, I don't want to deal with that. So all right. I'm just saying.
But you know what's interesting though, because I appreciate what both of you sharing. So for me, I have two quick takeaways.
Yeah.
Let's start with when the redevelopment dollars were taken away. We look at what year that started. It's easy to connect the dots when our unstructured population exploded here in Oakland. It's not a coincidence, right?
It was exactly that.
Right. And then the second thing is this. To me, there's a lot to be said about the Democratic Party. I think, Zennie, to your other point about people being informed and being engaged, I think especially under the Trump administration, there was a lot of energy trying to get us to hyper-focus on his flaws. And to me, that's a shell game. I mean, even now with this impeachment, and I'm going to be real on this. I'm going to give you my opinion on why they're trying to impeach Trump. What I take away from that is they really fear, because first of all, he is the number one candidate for the Republicans in 2024 as of right now, absent of impeachment. I really believe they fear he would be reelected. And what that tells me is if you're fearing his election viability, then maybe you need to have a plan. They spent the last 4 years blaming Trump, and they set an extremely low bar, right? To where, who's a Republican here on city council, for example, right? It's not enough to say this guy is horrible. I need to hear from you. What's your values? And even right now, in the next 4 years, I've been sharing with people saying things like, oh, Biden go win, we're going back to normal. What is normal? Normal for who? Because prior to COVID, we wasn't living good out here. So it's a matter of privilege. And I really think all of us, to your point, have to do a better job of holding all our government accountable. And I'll even add ourselves as well. We're no longer in a position just to sit on the sidelines and watch these things happen. And this is a perfect example, utilizing platforms like yours to have real truth that's not predicated on someone else trying to create or control the narrative. Let's talk about what everyday folks in Oakland see when we leave our homes. For those of us who even have the privilege of even having a home, for example, right? So,
yeah, we need to get Derrick elected because, as I think about it, someone who has had the background that Derrick has, actually the best person to be there to want to fix it, because Derrick, the reason why I say that is I'll just say this, all the council members are well paid. And so they're well paid to a point where they don't have to think, well, gee, am I wasting time arguing here when, I need money, right? And yet people out there who need money, who are waiting for government to do something, and they're waiting for this hope, their hopes are dashed when they hear, Libby and getting her thing, and then they hear, because a lot of people are not on Twitter, okay? They hear that, Council President Bass called the mayor a white supremacist. And then they get a letter from the email from Carol Fife about, the same thing. But what does that have to do with their need to put food on the table, to get decent health care, to know if they're going to have a place to live? And not only that, even if they have a home to live in, all of a sudden, here comes the building inspector to fine them, which we have not put moratoriums on in the middle of a damn pandemic. It's stupid. The stuff that we're doing, we allow cities to do in the middle of this is, I'm not going to curse, it is just freaking stupid, man. And what's worse is that the electorate puts up with it. Folks, I'm going to say this, okay? All of us were born before the internet. We were teenagers before the internet. Those of you who are younger, who were born on the internet, take a time out and just do some basic reading about something, rather than, even if you get online, read it in depth, okay? Understand it to a point where, for example, with economics, if I say, conservative economics, you understand it's ISLM as opposed to something that's racist. Because a lot of people call themselves conservative, have no fucking idea what they're talking about. You are not conservative. All right? If you don't know economics, you can't do the math, shut up. I've had it.
Zennie, we fired up today.
No, it's just, it's just all this, it's just gotten to me. You
got it.
It really has. It's just I'm out here 3,000 miles of my dear mom here, and you encounter these folks here who are, they say they're conservative, and they have Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's literally up the piece, road a piece, and her people, $42,000 median income, 85% white, 79% high school education, only 16% college, okay? They need money. The unemployment rate 16%, almost 20%. And she's rabble-rousing and bringing attention to herself, and no one is saying, excuse me, it's the same problem as in Oakland, right? The same thing. The extremes have taken over, and the business of government is not getting done, and people are suffering for it, and it ought to be criminal. It ought to be.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Someone's got to get...
Unfortunately, I have to run. Unfortunately, I have to run, but if I can just offer this last point before I go. And it's two quick things. The first is, everything is about narratives. If we create narratives that excludes others, let's look at Trump supporters, for example. White people are also find themselves marginalized by economic order due to the mass outsourcing of manufacturing-based jobs that gave their parents and grandparents, etc., a leg up. We have to do a better job of, once again, I'm going to go back to the theme of unifying factors. If we create simplistic narratives, for example, we say, everything in America is anti-Black racism, then what does that mean for non-Black folks? We got to have deeper, real conversation. Second thing I want to say is this. It relates to the sideshow real quick, because I know the one thing I hear about sideshows in terms of people concerned is the violence. So I just want to quickly remind people that the act of drive-by shooting started with people like Al Capone and bootleggers. That same phenomenon of cars speeding away from law enforcement with illegal hooch in their car led to the formation of NASCAR. So it's so important, as you shared, Zennie, that we have to educate ourselves on their history and not get caught up in these false, simplistic narratives. Acts of violence at a sideshow in Oakland, all that should be criminalized to go to jail. No, let us reward the artistic behavior. Create safe circumstances and conditions so that way we can eliminate those elements of it. Because it's not just a matter of saying people are just acting a fool. So that being said, I appreciate you. I gotta go anytime, Derrick. And thank you, Derrick. And Zennie, tell your followers.
Yeah, deputize him.
Yeah, please. I want this out there. People be asking me, "Hey, John, when you're running for office, you should run for mayor." No, Derrick is doing that. So y'all heard that. He's already has his hat in the ring. That's not what I want to do. I got other things I want to do. So please support this man, this brother, my friend, Derrick.
Absolutely. Definitely. Hey, Derrick.
Thank you.
Yeah, John, God bless. We'll have you back. Derrick, stick around for a sec because we'll close out praising John.
Right.
Man, we definitely. How's the campaign coming along? What's happening, man? And let's shout out to John. How did you get to know John, by the way?
John, I follow John because he's an East Oakland resident. He brings up the topic of folks from incarceration, and that's a very important topic, and a topic that affects homeless and housed people. So it's something that we have to touch on. And right now there are no safeties for the folks coming out of incarceration. And so we need to build in housing and shelter for these people. Otherwise, what ends up happening is they come out and end up here in the homeless camp. And it's not always a positive situation. If they're trying to leave